Hello guys, it's Luiza from Lightmap, and it's our pleasure to bring to you guys another inspirational interview with Cassandra and Alex Lyon, the co-founders of a creative studio, Lyon Visuals. How exciting! Lyon Visuals is a rapidly growing visualization studio based in New York. It was launched by a couple with a shared vision in 2015, Cassandra and Alex Lyon. As they would say it, in their studio, good enough is where the conversation starts, and best in class is where it takes you. Lyon Visuals prides itself in upholding the client's vision, elevating their design, and accenting their excellence. Their work can be seen in almost any grocery store aisle across the US and in leading brands' commercial spots. Some of the many brands they've worked with are P&G, Oreo, and Anheuser-Busch. Without any further ado, let's hop on a video call with Cassandra and Alex and hear their story from a business and a creative point of view. So get yourself a nice hot drink, some snacks, and enjoy the video. Hi. Good. How are you guys? Good. I say we just get started then and dive right into the questions. How did you guys meet? Did you go to the same university? Did you study the same course?
We did meet in college. I'm originally from New York State. Alex is from Kentucky, and we met in Ohio at our art school, Columbus College of Art and Design. And I majored in product design, actually.
Nice.
And Alex actually majored in illustration.
Yeah,
Great.
drawing, traditional drawing and painting. So
Great.
bit of a departure to where I'm at now.
So how did that lead to 3D? What triggered your interest in 3D, and what made you think this is something I want to be involved in?
Well, we graduated, in 2010. So the aftermath of all the economy was pretty hard hitting still. So I was really just trying to get any kind of creative job I could find. And I got an internship as a graphic designer, which I'm competent at, but it definitely wasn't, what I pictured myself doing. But once I got there, they really, the staff there realized how useful I would be with retouch because I had so much Photoshop experience from doing illustration, lots of digital painting stuff. So I started out putting clothes on people for mock-ups for advertising. And then I started doing packaging things. And before I knew it, I was doing full illustrations of like liquor bottles and things like that, just from scratch, just drawing it out by hand and illustrating it. But, that's not the kind of thing they can say, great, now show us the back view. It's another 13 hours of painting before they see it.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Cassandra? How did you get into 3D and, grew that interest?
After school, I kind of fell into community management, social media marketing for various technology and education companies. And Alex had gone freelance after a few years of working as a visualizer with some agencies in New York. Nice. And it got to the point where I was just helping him manage his clients, and I was looking for a shift. Yeah. And so we decided to join forces and start the studio.
Nice. So it kind of just became this natural hobby, really. And it was like it was meant to be. So why did you guys decide to create or launch a creative studio, and whose idea was it?
I guess it was mine. Working in product or packaging and branding in the city, even a place like New York City, it's a very small market. You get to know a lot of people over just a few years. And I was kind of realizing that because I was working in-house for an agency, that there were a lot of places that didn't have an in-house person, and there weren't very many of us freelancing in the city. So, after a few years with the last agency that I worked for, I decided to just kind of strike out on my own and start to, offer my services to, all the different agencies that we were constantly like competing with for work, and, kind of put myself out there. And the need was, it was enough to keep me busy, which, you never really know when you first, take the jump.
Yeah.
Your own.
Yeah.
How did you guys find that initial experience after graduating, your initial experience into getting started in your careers? Did you guys find it fairly easy or hard?
It was very challenging.
Very challenging.
Yeah. I feel that it was easier to transition to a different career than to get started and established.
Wow.
My first job in New York was an internship that I had for about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
We joke all the time that every job description initially at a lower level says you need 3 to 5 years of experience, but no one wants to give you the 3 to 5 years of experience to be hired.
Yeah.
So, it was definitely challenging, and I know more so for you.
Yeah, it's, you just want to get your foot in the door anywhere. And a lot of times that means doing something really unexpected and trying to use your skill set to answer any problems that you see anyone having. You just want to try and, use your creative thinking and your skill set to problem solve, and that's really what I feel like any art or design school is really, really training you for. But it wasn't until I was working in house that I met somebody that worked, had like years and years of experience working in packaging. And, and he was like, this is a job, just creating imagery of this kind of stuff. And that's not the kind of thing you learn in school. You have to get out there into whatever industry you end up in and really learn the ropes and, figure out what the niches are and the demands are for certain types of work. And, before you know it, you're like, oh, I had no idea that these kinds of things were needed out there.
Yeah, definitely.
He actually started to teach himself 3D software during one of the major hurricanes that hit New York City.
Oh, really?
Yes. Our office lost power, and we had mentioned when I first came on there that they wanted me to learn 3D, and I was like, oh, I'm interested, but I have no experience in it. So I downloaded the software while I was working from home, and after the first few weeks, I was like, okay, I can make a yogurt cup. I hope that's useful.
Yeah.
And just kind of went from there.
Hey, you can make some nice images of a yogurt. So, yeah. Tell me, what are your key responsibilities at Lyon Visuals?
Well, I run everything that is non-creative. Mm-hmm. I am all of the internal administrative hats. I wear all of our client-facing hats, financing, marketing, and everything on that end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm responsible for creating all of the imagery that we produce. I manage the team of contractors that we work with very closely. So everything from jumping in on briefing calls to creating the imagery, finalizing rounds of edits, with client feedback, kind of just everything that revolves around creating the product that we hand off to people.
Sounds great. So tell me more about the studio. Who's on your team, the purpose of the studio, and what you guys offer?
So our main core, offering is that, we work with creative agencies and directly with organizations to produce various levels of marketing assets, on-pack visuals, e-com, award assets, case studies, and anything that falls under the spectrums. We have, as Alex mentioned, a team of contractors. While Alex is our lead visualizer, we have product and lifestyle photographers. We have who are amazing. We have an amazing animator. We have additional 3D visualizers and retouchers, as well as a product designer that we tap into as needed. Some work with us closer than others, and so it really just depends on the season and what the specific needs are of the project.
Yeah. What's so unique about New York for a commercial 3D artist?
I think it's probably just everything is really at your fingertips, everything from being able to communicate with such a large range of designers and creative directors and the kinds of people that are looking for this kind of visual work. If you are able to network properly, you can pivot from one industry to another because there's so many different places located in just one city. So it's, as long as you're kind of mentally capable of making those pivots and turns in your career, there's really nothing slowing you down from like impeding you from making those relationships.
Right.
I do think that, we we're very fortunate that we're able to work with the agencies and organizations that we do, not just in New York, but, across the country and across the world. But I do think that there is something to be said where, we were at times having things couriered over to us to have a sample or vice versa. It's really easy to just go stop by a client's office to just review something. We've moved out of the city about an hour and a half north of the city a few years ago, but it was actually a really seamless transition. If anything, our clients were really excited that if we had a photo shoot, there was a reason to leave Manhattan to check out, some nice wooded areas north of the city. But it's, I think it's definitely has a lot of pros.
New York sounds like a great place. I definitely want to go one day and visit for sure.
Definitely. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. We've been out for a few years, but we still miss it every day.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about your experience as co-founders of a creative studio. So initially, how was that kind of experience? Did you have any challenges? Do you still face any challenges? And if so, are there any different compared to the challenges at the start?
I think for me personally, I was entering a new industry that I had no idea, fully what I was entering into. A lot of our friends are amazing package designers and in the field. And, I spent a lot of time with them. I understand, I understood, I should say, the generic ins and outs of the process. So for me, it was a really big learning experience the first year that we had started everything.
Yeah. Having gone from a graphic designer to kind of like a half retoucher to production artist and then fully into visualization. I felt like I was just creating flashcards to quiz her on different, industry terms and things, because she was coming in totally green to this space, despite all of her like management and marketing experience that obviously comes into play. For me, it was just, learning how to be independently disciplined enough to function outside of the structure of an office, having to create those routines and make sure that you're completing the right amount of work every single day. It just takes a lot of discipline to maintain that kind of creative workflow and produce the same quality as, every day that you're working without somebody standing over you telling you, that you need to do this or that.
I also think just as a studio, those first, they always say the first 3 to 5 years are the hardest for any business. And that definitely is true. I think you're battling with gaining awareness and establishing yourself, and it ebbs and flows. There's a lot of clients that for 1 year, they'll be our main focus. And then the next year it's, you're waiting impatiently for that other client. And we're always hustling, to gain more awareness and continue to establish ourselves, not only within the advertising and packaging industry, but also, more directly client side. It's definitely a lot of learning moments that I feel like only now we're starting to really gain a full level set and understanding over.
Yeah. But that's something that she's definitely helped me realize was just the amount of, you can't become complacent at all if you want the business to continue to grow. And, when you're as close into a project as I tend to get, just focusing on the work itself that needs to get completed, it's so easy to start to rely very heavily on a single client relationship and kind of lose sight of like where the bigger picture's headed. Yeah. Because their needs, one client's needs from a year to next, like she's saying, is completely shifts, and they might not have that work, but then someone else does. And you need to know that you're always out there looking for something. That
sounds great. So how does the workflow at Lyon Visuals look like? So how do you guys communicate, especially during today's times, taking into consideration today's life situation? How do you manage to communicate with your clients and other team members?
Actually, in the last year, nothing has really shifted for us. We joke that we were social distancing, before it was cool to do so. Starting out, we had rented an office in the city, and then we quickly just transitioned into our apartment. And even with bringing on contractors, unless they're needed on site or, within our home for a photo shoot, or on set for a photo shoot. Everything has always been communicated via email or through Slack. The same with our clients. Typically, they'll reach out to us if they are in need of something. We'll, go through a briefing conversation, estimates, and discussing a price. And then all of the assets are handed over to me, and they get passed over to Alex. And then it's either Alex will start to work on that project, or he will brief and supply all of the needed assets to one of our contractors. Before COVID, we were actually able to start to seamlessly have virtual photo shoots with our clients.
Really?
And it's proven just successful going into 2020 and 2021. And our clients are really pleased with it. It's really difficult to be able to take the time out to go to a shoot. You're not in the office all day. And we're able to have a live feed on our camera, and we have planned check-ins throughout the day.
Shoot tethered and screen share the photo shoot. So it's like as if they want us to rotate something or, cut a light with a highlight or something like that, we can do that live, which was a good transition. Yeah. We've only done it once for a project with 3D because it was a very sensitive chocolate pour that needed a lot of finessing. Yes. So that was only that one project that we've done a live feed of the actual 3D process.
Yes.
Virtual photo shoot. That sounds awesome. So modern. You seem like you guys are like 100 years ahead of everyone else. No, I'm glad it's working out for you guys.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying I'm glad it's really working out for you guys.
Yeah, it's to be honest, I was waiting for something. And we've been very fortunate with our clients and the projects. And I think just based on the needs of people in general, our clients and our direct clients just ended up being the main products that were being put out during 2020. Snacks, liquor, dairy.
Oh, they look very delicious. Right. So let's talk about your tools for 3D. What 3D software do you guys use? Renderers and any other tools or plugins?
Primarily, we work within MODO. I use the onboard renderer from MODO. We use HDR Light Studio and then Photoshop. I think the only time we really use something like Illustrator is just in processing clients' files. But yeah, everything primarily shifts between those three main products.
Is there a reason why you're using MODO? Is that the first 3D software that you've learned? Is that why?
Yeah. It's actually because I taught myself. I bought it was a software that I could afford at the time, and there's a lot of really good resources out there that I was able to view because I didn't know how far into it I was going to get until I knew I was able to use it in my daily workflow. And it's. They've always been a very responsive company, so I've been very happy with them thus far. The improvements that they've made over the last few years have been great. I do intend to branch out, but it's you got to find the time.
For sure.
To really dig into a new software.
So, what would be your next piece of kit that you would learn?
3ds Max, I think, is the industry standard that I would like to adopt as well. To work with. I don't know if I could give up MODO's modeling tools, but definitely there's a ton that 3ds Max has to offer that I'd be very interested.
I did notice that the 3D software that 3D artists tend to use is the first software that they learn. There's always something about, it's this first love, it's where the hobby started. So I can understand that.
You just get so, and it's funny you say that because really I'm Photoshop first. Just because of how I started everything out. And there's so much of how I've used MODO that they have like a whole just layer tree structure that is very reminiscent of groups and layers in Photoshop that made me feel so comfortable when I first started working. And, I'm sure there's so many habits that I've formed in Photoshop that have carried over into 3D workflow that I'm sure someone else would be like, why are you doing it this way?
So speaking of HDR Light Studio, I'm glad you guys are using it. I'm glad it's working out for you guys. But I am curious to find out, how did you hear about HDR Light Studio and when was the first time that you've heard about it? What caused that decision to try it in the first place?
Using MODO, I for the first couple of years, I only used the lights that they had built in, or I created a polygon and added a luminous setting and was just kind of makeshift making my own lights that way for a while. And it's just a very time consuming process, and you can only get so realistic. And, when I got to the point where I really wanted to invest in improving that side of things, HDR Light Studio was just kind of a no-brainer. The amount that you get standard with the software, the whole catalog of lights, how realistic they look, the reflections, being able to set the resolution for your HDR output. For any size render, your reflections are going to look sharp and real, and it's very quick to use. You're not grabbing and using handles to shift and move things around. You can just click and drag and move from one side of a set to another.
That's great. So I'm curious to know if HDR Light Studio, does that help you learn lighting better? So does it help you learn the art of lighting?
I would say that it definitely does, because it's the way you're able to layer things. You're able to create a very complex scene in a pretty short amount of time. And especially with the latest update of being able to group things together and save multiple versions out all within one file to test things. Even that has already been, really adopted into the workflow. Like, because I would say that coming from a painting background, I'm used to just creating the light that I need. And so actually having to manually light something, was something that I had to get used to. And, but HDR Light Studio has definitely made it a much easier transition to really kind of push yourself, within a 3D space.
I'm pleased. That's great to hear. What would, if you had to choose a few of your favorite features of HDR Light Studio, what would they be?
Probably just being able to scale infinitely. There's a lot of like little details, like the wrinkles in certain softboxes. And the fact that I can bring in the ones that are my favorite and scale them to be whatever size I want. Especially because we work with products that are so small a lot of time, and you have to keep that in mind. Like when you're lighting something, you can't use a bunch of lights that in real life would be so large that they'd have to be so far away from your product. Because you model it, you go through the process of modeling everything to scale, texturing to scale. You have to keep that in mind when you're lighting, that like, oh, okay, everything would in real life be closer, so all my lights should be a little bit larger than they might necessarily import in at. I feel that flexibility is probably one that I lean on the most, is, being able to do that.
With you guys working from home and remotely, did you guys make use of the, I'm going to call it the portable lighting feature? So sending lighting files, like lighting designs to other clients and team members. Was that quite handy for you guys?
Yeah, it definitely was. Being able to, it's only been in the last couple of years that we've had additional 3D people besides myself, and being able to exchange lighting setups, because I might only have the time in my week to do the modeling and the texturing, and you might throw some placeholder lights on there, but that's what you've been looking at it with. So, you want to be able to share that with someone, even if they're going to start from scratch. It being able to have that transition, and then whatever they have, if we have to divide a series of renders between a couple different machines, everybody's on the same page, and you can't beat that kind of, flexibility long distance.
Have you tried lighting with HDR Light Studio, Cassandra?
Oh, no.
No?
Learning programs, I am the first to say, is not my forte. That was proven in college when I took the same modeling software course 3 times. It's just not a skill set that I currently have. It's definitely been awesome to see. One of our photographers is also learning 3D. He's in the process of learning 3D, and he's an amazing he's amazing with light, as a photographer, but I think it's been really interesting for me to see the seamlessness of how he's able to pick up the lighting software. We'll touch base with him at some point because of just the complexity of what it is we need to light. And it's the seamlessness of assets within the program and have been really great.
Yeah, it's been actually really interesting to work through that with him because, I can send him a 3D model and he has the software installed. And whereas I'm looking at it going, okay, I want a highlight that looks like this.
Yeah.
He's saying, I know what equipment I would need to light it in real life. Where's this? Like, where's the softbox that's this size? What can I change the fabric on the front? Can I put colored gels in front of this? How many pinos can I put in this scene? And I'm sitting there going, listen, I don't know, poke around.
Yeah.
He has to explain to me, there's been a few instances where he's like describing a very specific type of umbrella. And I'm like, no, I definitely do think they have that. So it's been really cool to watch him. Yeah.
Nice.
He's shown me because he knows obviously the physical representation of the kinds of digital assets you guys have created. Yeah. And he's definitely lit things with stuff that I hadn't even tried using before because he knows exactly how it would work in the real world. And that's been a really interesting benefit and new way of looking at the software that just from my own background, I didn't have.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Some of our customers even describe HDR Light Studio as like a virtual photography studio. A lot of 3D artists aim to replicate reality to make it as realistic as possible. Obviously not in certain situations like sci-fi and made up things, but a lot of the times I notice that they do aim for like realism.
And we have had clients that have difficulty wrapping their heads around the full use capabilities of 3D, especially if they have a long-standing relationship with photographers. They know how that industry works. And a lot of times they're apprehensive about our ability to recreate that. So, keeping ourselves bound to reality a lot of times is what the client is looking for. Obviously, you could light something in such a way that you're like, it would take such a large photo studio to have enough pieces, or you'd have to do it in multiple shots and composite them together because light stands don't allow you to stick that many things in one spot, or you can only cut something so many times with a black card, but it's surprising how much you're like, as much capability and range and flexibility that you have with HDR Light Studio. It's like a lot of times the client's imagination is kind of like, almost tampers down the full capability. But you're able to answer either situation, which is great.
There have been times where we've been we're always excited with the projects that we get, but I think, there's definitely, really crazy briefs where no matter what, it comes down to lighting and texture of the model. But, it's something that's super high glossy that isn't normally a high gloss. It's fun to see how Alex or any of our other contractors are playing within the program and enhancing those materials based on the lighting and making it feel real, even if it is a very abstract shape.
Do you have a favorite type of project to work on?
I really enjoy beverage projects in general. Liquor bottles just give you so much fun to play with the materials and the applications. A lot of times it's just kind of an upscale market. So they spend a lot of money perfecting their packaging, and then you get to recreate that, which is always a lot of fun. And then, even when you're talking about something like, like a beer or a soft drink, covering something in ice and condensation and then getting to light that like a shiny object like that. Like, sometimes it's the most challenging, but you're also just like, I nailed it. When you get through it all. I'd say those are probably the projects I look most forward to.
Yeah. I'd say, while I'm not doing it, my favorites always tend to be when the task is to blend a photograph, whether it's ours or not, with a 3D model. I'm always blown away at the skill set of our team, and especially Alex. But in the last year, especially, there's been some real challenging requests from our clients where a lot of times, and understandably, a a product's graphics have been finalized, it's gone to photo shoot, and then something changes or legal gets back and says, no, that's wrong, we have to switch it. And even to the Alex's point of condensation and ice chips on a beverage can, he had to exactly match lighting with the use of HDR Light Studio to ensure that this can that was covered in condensation matched the lighting of the other cans in the photograph.
Yeah.
That sounds challenging.
Yeah, it's difficult mostly because in instances like that where a project circles back around and there's like an emergency, you don't have the opportunity to communicate with the photographer. You don't know what the lighting setup was. Yeah. So you kind of just have to kind of backwards engineer it and test things and figure out, because even if you cut a light, you might have light bleeding around that reflects on one certain part of a can. So it's like you have to, even if it's creating more objects in your 3D space to block the light or stand in the way and cast a shadow or something, you have to problem solve all of that, which, can get pretty tricky.
Would you guys say you specialize in products, packaging, beverages, like you say, or are you just like all-round players?
I like to think that we're capable of being all-around players, but we do tend to live in this space more often than not.
Yeah.
We've had opportunities to stretch our legs with, some product shots. But at the same time, a lot of product design agencies are, very capable of doing beautiful renderings themselves. But we always get excited when we get to step outside of the space as well.
But as much as it is the structures and the packaging, we've had a lot of opportunities to, work with and provide our clients with 3D food. And that's always its own special challenges because those are very real elements, and sometimes from brands that are very iconic in their patterning or shape, and so it's pressure in a completely different way. But I think we've now been really spreading our wings and really providing some amazing hyper real 3D food.
Awesome. Can you think of a crazy project that you did? Did you meet a crazy deadline? Did that happen?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
It's probably hard to narrow down such a list.
Yeah, a lot of times, and he can go into specifics about, certain projects, but a lot of times, I like to say, and which is true, we can be brought in from concept all the way through to production. And there's a benefit to having either an individual on staff or, hiring us or someone like us to do that. But, a lot of times it's either a last minute request or for concepts or pitches, or it's, something's going to print in 2 weeks and a very large ask, or even if it's a smaller ask, we're brought in a lot later sometimes than I think is than we would expect. But also, things change on a hairpin turn sometimes, and you never know what the client is going to need or what their legal team is going to say. So
yeah, we've definitely had our challenges with that sort of thing, and you always want to say, "Oh, pull us in as early as possible." Yes. But sometimes it's just not. It isn't possible for them for their timeline. I think one of our greatest benefits that we like to share with clients is that you can start a photo shoot process as a photo shoot process with us before your products have gone to production. You can dual timeline two different aspects of a project, because we're able to take the design files and create it before production is completed,
which we do a lot.
Yeah.
But I'd say that the craziest timeline we ever had to meet was for a very large beer brand. Their design agency came to us, and we'd been working on the packaging visuals and other assets for months. And they came to us, I believe, on a Friday with the request of 13 full-size billboard renderings in 7 days.
Really? Wow. That sounds crazy.
Clearly we push back because that's not just the render time alone is just, it's not possible. It was a crazy deadline for everyone involved. It was definitely a moment where I was on the phone or texting constantly with our client at very odd hours of the evening. And Alex and the team were working very diligently, but that was probably the most insane turnaround that we've had to perform. And I think it ended up being 14 days. Like we did it in 2 straight weeks.
That's actually still quite impressive.
just to turn around.
With the render times and everything.
No little sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to ask, did you guys sleep?
Not really.
It was just eye drops and coffee.
Yeah.
And just,
And the crazy thing was, after they came out, we didn't even live in an area where we could see the billboard. So it maybe like 6 months later, we were at a conference and I just started freaking out, like made us pull over so we could get out.
I would do that. I would definitely do that as well. Did you guys take pictures next to it? I would.
Yeah. It was like the whole side of a building.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah, it was.
But of course, you're looking at it, looking up close. You're like, well, now that I'm looking at it this large, did I miss
something?
Yeah. I can't imagine how stressful that was. How did you deal with that stress and lack of sleep?
The resolution that they were requesting was the hardest part because it's, you can only render so fast across so many machines. And the images were so large, yes, you can split an image like down the middle and render it on two machines, but then the compositing process adds so much more time on the back end. Yeah. It's just not practical a lot of times. So we had to get really creative, using some of the assets that were high res enough that we already had created. There were certain bits that were photo composited in, so that saved some time. So, at the end of the day, it was just working around the clock to get them handed off, and then transferring online files that size had its own obstacles too. Once you hit the end of the deadline,
that was the most stressful moment I think we've had since leaving New York, because I would have just hand delivered it at that point, no matter what time of day it was completed.
Yeah.
And that we were preparing, I think, at one point for me to just drive down and drop off this hard drive at their office, because it just wasn't uploading and compressing files causes issues sometimes, and batch sending, and so it was a learning process. We really learned what our limits were, but it was definitely a really awesome challenge, and we're fortunate to still get to work with that team. So it's definitely been fun.
Yeah,
being a freelancer, having your own creative studio and working for someone, those are two different things. Once you own that creative studio, it's not just about the art. It's about the business itself and learning how to run that business.
Yeah. And file handoffs in particular is one of those things that it's so easy because you want to create the biggest, most beautiful, high resolution image you can. But a lot of times, teams aren't prepared for it, or they don't need it. You don't want to over deliver and make the process of handing these assets out to their teams more challenging. It's just something you always have to keep in mind and kind of like, reserve, like, oh, we could go huge with this, but do you need to?
Yeah. So about that crazy deadline, crazy project, did you at any point think, we can't do this, we're just not going to make it? Or did you think, we will get through this, it's going to be hard, it's going to be stressful, but once we get that sent, we'll have some chill time?
I think it was both.
Yeah.
You didn't have an option, and that
it was the initial thought of, this is impossible, are they crazy? But it had to happen, and it wasn't going to happen without us. And so we had to get on board. The last thing you want to do is leave a client in the lurch, because their team was as much all hands on deck as we were. And it was crunch time for everyone involved. So it's also a brand, not just with the agency that we worked with at that moment, but that brand we've worked on with that agency at this point for almost 6 years on and off. So I think it's something where it's not just a standard project with a crazy deadline. We are very invested in this brand. And it was one of our first projects when we officially launched the studio. So it's definitely a project of love as much as it is a standard project.
Must be a nice memory then, although it was stressful. But like you say, I can see how this project was like awesome to do. And you guys made it, so congrats. I'm glad it worked out.
We came out of the other end. Yeah. We survived.
Really nice to get like a business point of view from you guys. So that's really nice. And I think people will love that as well.
Yeah,
that's great to hear.
It's definitely like we try to keep up, obviously, on all of the talented individuals that are out there. But it's definitely something where I know that we are a unique situation, that it is just a studio that focuses on what we focus on. We're always trying to speak to our clients and listen to our clients in terms of what their needs are, which is why we're trying to expand our offerings as much as we can.
Yeah. But, this is proof that I'm a freelancer at heart, and if I could stay in my cave and sit on my computer, I would, and I'm happy to do so. But you combine, a freelancer with someone who knows how to market and network, and and really push the envelope of like who you're going to communicate with, and it grows a business, and eventually you have to consider like, okay, do you want to kind of pump the brakes and back off, or do you just want to keep moving forward? And that's when you have to decide to grow or not.
Yeah, for sure. Are you guys allowed to talk about your current projects? What projects are you working on?
At the moment, no.
No? Oh, that's a shame.
The unfortunate thing is all of our really awesome, crazy projects are the ones that no one really ever gets to see.
It's always like that.
It's we've gone to work with some amazing brands, both large and small. But I think, let me just check. Well, actually, we just finished. We're finishing up, but it is now on the market, so we can. There is one of our largest clients has rebranded the vegan grocery line Follow Your Heart, and so all of their e-commerce visuals and visuals on their website are all of our visuals. It's been about a 6-month process to still be finishing them up. We're in the home stretch, but we've in the last year we've gotten the opportunity to work with a client representing Neutrogena. Early last year we got to work with Taco Bell, which was a lot of fun. But we've unfortunately I can list, but I can't.
Yeah.
I can't showcase.
Yeah. We're working with a supplement company now.
Yes.
That's their brand currently.
I think the biggest challenge for us is really identifying where the growing industries are and how we can best target and pivot to either get in front of the right agencies or directly in front of the clients themselves. And I think that's been a really fun challenge. We've been really pushing hard for pharmaceuticals or skincare as much as we have CBD based products, and we've had an opportunity in all ends of those spectrums to start those conversations and also start working on some projects, which has been a lot of fun.
Every time that you want to start to bridge into a new area, anyone who creates visuals is, I'm sure, tired of hearing, but can you do this? And it's like, that is quite adjacent to what I just showed you. Yes, I promise I can. I really mean it. This jar is just like the other 5 jars. I'll do my best.
My favorite is, I know that you've done all of these beer brands and they look great, but can you do my soda can? Like, I can. I can manage that.
But it's always a difficult challenge at first, but you have to focus on those kinds of relationships to further branch out.
Yeah.
Nice. If you had to give like a 3D artist advice for improving their renders or just, growing as a 3D artist, what would you tell them?
Growing as a 3D artist, I would say like you have to make sure that you're not cutting corners on any leg of the process. Everything from having good, clean modeling habits to, making sure that you're not making textures that are too low resolution for the size of your final render, to making sure that you're taking the time to light things properly and exploring the different ways that you could light something, looking at collecting reference of other things that are out there so that you're not, designing a lighting setup or an environment in a bubble. Because obviously there's other amazing 3D artists out there, and there's other amazing photographers out there that are probably doing something you hadn't thought of necessarily.
Yeah, I think that's a large part of our weekly check-ins with our contractors, or even just when we were especially getting started. We're always keeping tabs. We follow as many 3D artists as we find, and photographers, and really just try to not only be on top of what trends are within our industry, directly with the clients we work with, but as also what other people are doing. You can only be as good as what you're educating yourself with.
Exactly.
We have Pinterest boards just full of material reference for not only Alex, but all of our contractors to reference as needed for projects. And we use it often. We're constantly updating it. But it's always a learning moment and a learning experience.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more humbling than going into your own files 5 years later and, being like, well, who did this? This is a travesty. Oh, that's right, I did.
What are your goals for this year, both as a business and, growing as a 3D artist, standing out from the rest, and standing out from other creative studios as well?
I think our biggest goal, not only, we're fortunate, as I said, to work with the clients and agencies that we have. I think our biggest goal is to go more directly client side and kind of almost make it as balanced as possible with 50-50 as we can. And it's more for the lead times on projects potentially shifting and the need to bring on contractors more full time. Our goal is to continue to expand, but not overstretch ourselves as much as possible. And I think, just branching off into new and exciting, industries and, structures are inherently only so different, but art direction is always fun. And, getting to work with creative individuals is always great. But
for me, it's, like she said, going more client side and building out more of those types of relationships. I'm always excited to jump in it and work on a project that maybe I haven't gotten to work on in a while, as far as like what the focus of the project is, the type of product, like, food is anything that's really organic is always just a really fun challenge to do, because it's like, we're used to always seeing like pretty pictures, but you still have to make it as real as possible. It's always easier to go really realistic and then back off and perfect things after the fact, than have those little nuances missing. So, I feel like that's always something that we're constantly pushing with, and then being harder on myself about learning those other softwares, because, you don't want to kind of leave your own education behind, especially when you're working with a team and, and helping them learn as well. It's so easy to kind of put yourself at the bottom of the list when, they're not going to be able to adopt something that you don't understand. So it's like, you always have to really be pushing for your own education, to stay up on what's new.
Are you, sorry, you were going to say something? No? I was just going to ask, are you guys, well, I can assume that you are always on a hunt for new clients. I know you've got a lot of agencies that you work with, brands, and like you just confirmed, you are on the hunt for clients. How do you go about that? How do you get new clients? How do you draw them in?
I have discovered, with years of Googling and testing, there are some programs that are free and paid for where you can it'll help you figure out with the help of LinkedIn, like what the email sequence is for an organization. And, I reach out, I build, in email, visual banners that are associated with either their business directly or the industry that they're in, to showcase, what we've done in the past and how that we can actually do whatever it is that they are representing. And I try to get a conversation started that way. What's very interesting is, just from the agency side of things move so quickly, and people shift roles and go to a different organization all the time, agency constantly. And we've been very fortunate that, most of the time they take us with them. We have a very high retention rate with our clients. And I think that's partly because we work very hard to build really strong relationships with them, not just with the consistency of our work, but just, that they can rely on us. I'm on a texting basis, depending on the project and depending on the client, with a large amount of our clients, and, just do check-ins. And, I want us to be the individuals in the studio that they rely on. But I also want to ensure that should they leave that agency or go to a different industry completely, that, we're first of the top of their mind.
Wow, that's been so awesome, guys. And talking to you guys, I've had so much fun, and I'm glad things are working out really great for you guys, and you are growing both as a business and as artists. And I wish you guys all the best. And thank you guys. Thank you for your time.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much.
Thanks so much.